Hello, Ranger Point Precision friends and family. Pat here with Adam Devine, CEO of Ranger Point Precision. Today we're going to be talking about your lever action, the accuracy, and things that can affect the accuracy. And then Adam's just going to give you a real world expectation of what you can expect out the box.
Hey guys, this is something I love talking about. I'm kind of an accuracy nut. Not everybody gets into it on the granular level that I do, but regardless of the weapon system I'm running, I want there to be accuracy in it. And a lot of you probably feel the same way, particularly if you're coming over to lever guns from AR-15s or bolt guns. You have a fairly high expectation of accuracy. And while lever guns are certainly capable of accurate shooting, they don't always do so right out of the box. So we're going to talk about how that can happen sometimes, but also just what the expectation should be out of the box. Because what I don't want is for you to come over as a new lever gun enthusiast and get all excited pulling that thing out of the box the first time, and then go to dial it in with a scope for hunting or whatever, and have a bad experience. Go, oh, this thing, it's shooting 5 minutes and it doesn't seem to care what ammo is in it. It just sucks, and then you get frustrated, and that's the last time we see you in lever guns. That shouldn't happen. It sometimes does, but there are ways to fix it. But let's start by just talking about the platform itself and what you can expect. Okay, so what you can and should expect from a lever gun out of the box is probably somewhere in the 2-minute range on the bad end, and hopefully closer to a minute, or sometimes even less on the good end of that range, just with a factory rifle and a little time and attention to ammunition and setup. I've seen plenty of factory rifles get pretty close to a minute. What's been your experience, Pat? I know you've shot a lot of lever guns now.
Well, my Henry, I got one of the Henry all-weather 30-30s, and that one straight out the box with factory ammunition. I pulled a .97 MOA, so that is just hair shy of an inch, 3-shot group at 100. So I was tickled with that. But now there was one thing about that rifle I did have to do. The front magazine dovetail was slightly loose. I noticed that before I took it to the range. I gave it just a little bit of a peck with a polished ball peen hammer, and I took that vibration out. That's something that he's going to be talking about here shortly.
Yep.
But once I got that .97 MOA factory ammunition, I was tickled with that. But then again, my 4570, I joke and I say that it's minute of Coors Light, because if you roll a soda or a beer can on its end, it'll hit somewhere in that minute of Coors Light. So yeah, I've had successes from anywhere from just sub MOA to 2.5 MOA, so 2.5 inches at 100 yards.
Sure.
It's still handing off a very deadly payload.
Sure.
But,
and if you need to kill a hog, 2 inches is going to get it done for sure if you're in reasonable range, right?
Yep. But if you guys are chasing paper,
yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what can affect that in lever guns. Obviously, there's plenty of different lever gun platforms out there right now. You've got Marlins in both rifle and pistol calibers. You got Henrys, which are reasonably close copies of that. You've got Winchester top ejects that are a whole different animal. You got Rossies that are reasonably close copies of that. You've got things like Henry Long Ranger and Browning BLR, which are very similar to each other and use a box-fed magazine. You've got your older Savage 99s. There's a lot of stuff we're covering here, but we're going to talk a little bit more about the probably by far the most common, which is your tube mag-fed setups, like a Marlin 336 here. Pat's got his. What you got?
That's my 336.
Yep.
That's a Marlin Dark outfitted with all the Space Cowboy stuff from Ranger Point Precision.
Yep. So you'll notice, depending on the platform you got, obviously if it's tube fed, one thing that can affect accuracy a lot in these things is the way that all of this is affixed to the fore end, or to the barrel, I should say, because both the fore end and the magazine tube are all hanging on that barrel, and as any precision shooter will tell you, that's usually not great for accuracy. I'm here to tell you, however, that can be dealt with. When we were building custom rifles for a living, when we first started RPP, I promised MOA on every rifle, every custom rifle that we built, and we never failed to deliver on that promise. We very often use match grade barrels, but we could also pretty frequently get that kind of accuracy out of a factory barrel as well. And a lot of that just comes to how well the rifle is put together And by that, I don't mean were junk components used or not. When you've got this much stuff hanging on the barrel, it's very important that it all be in good balance and that it's not putting stresses or strains on the barrel where it shouldn't be. And of course, that's important too as the barrel heats and cools and goes through its cycle of heat exchange and where that barrel points according to where that heat draws it. So the first thing to remember when you get a lever action, if it shoots poorly, just remember it may not be the fault of the gun or more precisely the barrel. Sometimes that front end just needs to be gone through and fitted a little more carefully. Pat mentioned, for instance, that he took some slop out of that tenon hanging in the magazine tube. That's, if you have the time and the wherewithal to take some screws out and look at things, sometimes you can pretty quickly spot areas that can be improved. That fore end, if it's obviously this one is not riding on a tenon, but if you have a fore end cap style rather than a barrel band style, a lot of times that wooden fore end is just jammed between that receiver and that tenon, and it creates a lot of strain between the receiver and the barrel. And sometimes just taking a file and getting rid of some of that wood to ease that fit, you might see your group shrink by 2 inches just doing that. We did a lot of accurizing services on lever guns, and a lot of times our customers were astonished that we could take a 3 or 4 inch gun and turn it into an MOA shooter. So just remember, there's a lot of stuff going on under that barrel that's going to affect accuracy, and we could get into a lot of detail. We're not going to do it now. We will at some point, but we just want to talk about that and let you know that your gun isn't a lost cause if it doesn't shoot great out of the box.
Yeah, it definitely isn't. And what it all comes down to is as that barrel, once that gun is shot, that barrel has got a harmonic. So you've got a bullet coming down it, you've got the whole impact of the round or the shot. And so anything that touches it can affect that. And that's what he's talking about. Relieving things, making things fit a little better. Because ultimately, what your point of impact is where this barrel, if you watch it in a very low speed, high speed camera, those $250,000 cameras, you'll sit there and watch your barrel vibrate.
Yeah. They wag like a dog's tail. They're just flapping around.
Yep. And so that comes into you got your aluminum forearm here, which this one, I'm not having any accuracy problems. I promise you, if you're tasty and you're on 4 legs, you don't want to be within 200 yards of me with this one. But, and that's just me spending the time, learning my load, learning my drops. I've got a really awesome scope on here. I was showing Adam earlier, my sighting considerations, and knowing just real quick, in a hunting situation, these deer, they're just ghosts. They're here, they're gone, poof. You didn't hear anything, you barely saw anything. You got to have something really quick, and you got to know where that bullet's going to land at what distance. And, that all comes down to learning your rifle, reaching out to someone if you have to. Get this thing accurized. Get this thing fixed.
Yeah, and by the way, there's plenty of good resources out there, including some of the material that I've written over the years that can be found in our blog section on the website. But you can go to Marlin Owners Forum, and there's a whole bunch of posts about guys working through these accuracy gremlins and how to solve those. So if you're like me at all and you like to tinker, this might be an adventure that you actually enjoy a lot, and there's a lot of satisfaction gained in taking a rifle that doesn't shoot so well and making it shoot well. I know that's what hooked me into the accuracy thing. So.
Oh yeah, and that's what keeps me dragging along too.
Yeah.
He had mentioned earlier bolt guns and things like that. Yeah, you can get a bolt gun that's free floated and jump out there and go do the thing. But I don't know. I feel like these are just a little more rewarding.
Yeah,
I just enjoy a lever gun just a little bit more.
It's more engaging, and it's like I said, it's a bit more rewarding when you get the result you want because you had to work for it a little bit harder.
Yep.
So Pat's going to talk too a little bit more as far as point of impact and accuracy. He's going to tell you a little bit more too about how a suppressor is going to affect that, because a lot of you guys are justifiably wanting to put suppressors on your lever guns, and they're great platforms for that. So tell them about how that works.
All right, so first and foremost, talking about how a lever gun is a great platform, the fact that the bolt stays shut, you only open this bolt when you want to. So the fact that this bolt stays shut for the shot, what you're doing is you're forcing all of that to go down the barrel through the suppressor, and you're making this suppressor work at 100%. So versus an AR-15, whereas the bolt moves back and forth, or any other semi-automatic, you get what's called port pop. So you're not allowing your suppressor to be 100% effective because you're popping out the port. So that is additional noise. So now with a suppressor, The reason that I like these is because just like a good fence, a suppressor makes a good neighbor. So that translates to sport shooting, hunting, all sorts of stuff. But now when you hang this off the end of this barrel, we're talking earlier vibration. Anything that touches the barrel can affect the harmonics. Also, we've got something hanging on the end of the barrel. So you're going to have to understand whether you shoot suppressed or unsuppressed, your point of impact shift. I know on some of my rifles, one of my bolt guns, a suppressor makes a 6-inch MOA, or a 6-inch difference in elevation, point of impact versus point of aim.
Sure.
And so I hated to chew on that so much, but that's the truth. So you do have to know, once you take this off, where that changes in your scope. And as with this one, this Marlin Dark 336, with most ammunition, I'm probably somewhere around 1.5 MOA with this one. And it also, it depends on how I rest it too. So it's just a matter of where you're supporting the barrel. So yeah, you're going to find lots of considerations.
And that's a good, he makes a good point there too, folks. Remember that unlike a free-floated bolt gun, it does make a difference where you support this thing and how you support it. A bolt gun, if you're resting it on the forearm, that barrel is always going to be free-floated. The manner in which you rest that stock isn't going to change anything at all. But because this stock is actually attached to the barrel, it absolutely does. If you're grabbing that thing like a vise and squeezing it, and you've got high sights and you can see over your thumb, that's going to change the point of impact. If you're resting under here like a more traditional shooter would, then generally speaking, you should get a pretty consistent result. But if you're putting on a bag or you're putting strain down, I mean, all of these things can affect it. So bear that in mind too. But I'll just wrap by saying, if you're just getting the lever guns, or maybe you've just got a second lever gun and it's not shooting so well, don't get discouraged. Don't walk away from it if you don't get the results you want. These things are capable of fine accuracy, or at the very least, very acceptable accuracy for any practical purpose. So dive in, get a little bit more information. You can always talk to us. You can call us, talk to Pat, or even myself if you need to. And we'll walk you through to some solutions, and it'll be a fun journey for all of us.
Yep, definitely. And don't ever count lever actions out, because they are the gun that won the West. Correct?
True that.
So thanks guys for tuning in. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. We'll see you next video.
Bye folks.